Well, this is part 2 of a series that I had started on this watch that I was working on, the Hamilton 950. The person had sent me the wrong balance staff because I needed to re-staff this balance for this watch. Well, I checked the staff out and it seems to be the right one, so let's get started on re-staffing the balance on this pocket watch. So let's get out my favorite tool, the staking tool set, and get set up to re-staff this balance. This is a friction staff, and we'll be using the punches, and I'll show you what we're going to be doing. Right now I'm getting ready to center up and choose the correct hole that I'll be putting the staff in. Now we want to make sure we choose the correct hole to hold our staff. We don't want to get one that's too loose, and we don't want one that's too tight where it'll get stuck in there. So we find the correct hole and get it ready and center up our die plate. We use our centering punch, which is probably the most important tool in your punch set, to center up our hole so we have everything in alignment. So once we get our centering punch to line up the hole, we just lock down the die plate and get ready to do our work that we're going to be doing. So we got our staff in the correct hole that we're going to be using. I'm going to put my balance on top of the staff. Now I'm using this flat face punch to push the balance down to seat it on top of the hub of the balance staff, just to get it good and tight fit before I start my riveting. I'm not doing any riveting yet. I'm just pushing it down with my fingers, and it sets it down flush with the hub of that staff. Now I'm going to be using a round face punch to flare out the rivet on that riveting staff. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos that I've made a whole playlist on staking tool set. I show how to set up your staking tool set, so when you need a companion stake for to do a job, you don't have to search through all your different stakes. You can easily find the companion stake that you need. Using that method, all you need to do is count down and over with the same amount that you took from your right side of your staking tool set on the left side. So we have our round nose punch set up on our staff and our balance, and we're getting ready to rivet, spread that rivet out, and we'll just take it and do a few light taps with our brass hammer, our 3-ounce brass hammer. That's just some light taps, enough to spread that rivet out. And now we take our flat nose punch, we'll put it on top of our balance and our rivet that we've spread out with the round nose punch, and we'll tap it and flatten that rivet down completely, and that way it won't be interfering with our hairspring collet when we put our hairspring back on. So now that I have my balance staff attached to my balance, I'm just going to put it temporarily into the watch without the hairspring or the roller table installed, and just test the pivots and see if everything spins good, and I have no problems with that. Well, it looks like everything fits good. Balance spins freely. Have no problem with that. I'm going to just take the movement and tilt it different positions to see if it still spins around freely without binding anywhere, and everything looks good. So next step will be putting all the hairspring and the roller table back on. And also I'm checking to see if there's too much end shake in between the pivots on the balance, and everything looks good. Now I'm going to get the die plate lined up again for the hole that I'm going to be putting the stump that I'm going to use to put the roller table on the balance. Now I'm going to be using this flat face stump with a hole so the staff will fit in there and the balance will be supported when I'm doing this work. I won't bend the arms on the balance when I go to put on the roller table, the pressure that I'll be exerting down on top of it. I'll be using this special punch that has a slot cut out in it, and that slot is to keep from touching the roller jewel when you go to push the roller table down. It has clearance so you don't accidentally break your roller jewel off. You gotta be very careful when you're handling these parts. They're really tiny and they can get away from you and ping off your tweezers and be lost forever. So once you get it set up and everything lined up where you need it to be, it just takes a few very light taps with the hammer to seat that roller table down. You don't want to hammer too hard. Then the next thing we have is our safety roller that we're going to be installing. Since this is a double roller pocket watch, and it's even smaller than the regular roller table, so you have to be very careful with the positioning and how you place this on. And to install that safety roller, I use this special punch. You'll notice it has a special tip on the end of it. In my staking tool set, there's 3 of these with this type of tip. There's K1 through K2 and K3. And my set is a Marshall set. Now again, if you watch my other videos on staking tool sets, on punches and stumps, I go through all these different types of punches and stumps and give the information for them. So then again, we just do a few little light taps with our brass hammer to seat that safety roller down on top of the roller table. And the last thing I'm going to do to the balance is put the hairspring back on. I removed the stump that I was using. Now I just have the balance setting flat on the die of the staking tool set. Now something I didn't show was before I removed that hairspring, there's a stud on the hairspring, and I made a little tiny mark on the balance with a Sharpie, so I'll know exactly where to put that back in the right position, so I won't have to fiddle around with getting the watch back into beat. I'll be using a special punch that's just made for putting hairsprings on. They have a little different type of concave on the end of them. They're number H1 and H2 in my set, and they're just used for putting hairspring collets, pushing the hairspring collet down, and they're made so they don't touch the hairspring when you push your collet down. And I just use a little bit of finger pressure to push down on the hairspring. You don't want to hammer on that. You just want to gently and lightly push down and seat it onto the balance. All right, now it's time to put the balance back into the balance bridge and get this all tightened up and ready to put back in the watch. And this part takes a steady hand, is tightening these tiny little screws that hold the balance onto the balance bridge. This part always makes me nervous. Well, now comes the time to see if this thing's going to run, and if all that work that we put into it is going to pay off. Yeah, this is a really nice watch, the Hamilton 950, and then the pendant set, they only made a little over 4,000 of the pendant set. I think they started making them in 1910 and stopped making them in 1924, if I'm correct. So that makes the pendant set not as common as the lever set watch. It's the same watch, it's just the type of way the setting of the time was. Well, let's give the mainspring a little wind up and see if it's going to run. Well, after a few winds, there it goes. Another job well done. Now to finish putting it back together. So install the cannon pinion. The minute wheel. And next we're going to put the hour wheel. And next we'll put a dial washer. That dial washer keeps the hour wheel from riding up and coming loose. Next thing I'm going to do is loosen all the dial screws that hold down the dial. And now it's time to put that dial that I purchased, a replacement dial, to replace that one that went with it, that came with the watch originally. It was all damaged and cracked up and chipped up. Well, I also found a nice Hamilton salesman's case that was used to display the watches at a jeweler's when they were being sold. At the time, I put new crystals in the front and the back, brand new crystals. And I also polished the case up to make it nice and shiny. Well, if you enjoy these pocket watch videos, just subscribe to my channel. I have a playlist of divided up into different categories where you could go through and learn how to work on pocket watches and a little bit of information about pocket watches. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and leave any comments below. If you feel like asking questions, just go ahead and drop a question down below. Well, that movement fits in that case perfect. Now I'm going to take and put the 2 case screws in there to hold the movement into the case. And now it's time to put the hands on the watch. Get those lined up and use my hand pusher to push them down. Now I'm pull out the crown and give the hands a spin and make sure they clear each other and spin all the way around and not touch and bind up. Everything looks like it spins good. So next thing to do is just put that cover on and it'll be ready. Both the front and the back cover just snap on. Well, there we have a beautiful Hamilton 950 23 jewel pocket watch, fully restored and ready to add to my collection.